Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to FutureBuild, and for this session on putting health and well-being at the heart of placemaking. I'm Robert Huxford. We have four amazing speakers from as far as Petersfield, Cambridge, and deepest, darkest Essex this morning. I'm just going to do a very short introductory presentation on this. What does the law require? Healthy Places, a Code for Councils. And I'm Robert Huxford. I'm director of the Urban Design Group, which is a membership charity for people who are concerned about the way we design towns and cities. Anyway, there it is. It's the Healthy Place for Councils. It's one page. It's on the Urban Design Group website. And if you're interested in this, you can look it up. It's free to download. And what we've tried to do is put a load of different regulations, laws, statutory duties, common law duties, and relevant government guidance, all just down on one sheet of paper to make it as easy as possible. Because I think what we find is that government statutory duties, even government guidance, tends to get forgotten about. And what tends to happen is the way people did things in the past just continues, unabated, unchanged. It talks about the duties on attractive, healthy places. And when it comes to legislation, there are powers and there are duties. A duty is a must, a power is a may, and guidance is should. So is that fair enough? Okay, good, excellent. Well, I'm not going to go over this in any great detail. Good leadership and management. Councils in all decisions must act reasonably. This is the Wednesbury reasonableness doctrine, and at the bottom of the sheet there's a series of references that you can pick up if you're not convinced or you're worried about the veracity of this piece of paper. It talks about fairness for all. It talks about planning. It refers to the National Planning Policy Framework, the planning practice guidance produced by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, the clean air, various clean air duties and regulations. Fairness for all, that refers to the Equality Act and the Public Sector Equality Duty. Safe streets and highways, we've got the Road Traffic Act, the Highways Act, and there's the common law duty of care, and I'll go into that in a little bit of detail just in a few moments. Clean streets and public spaces. This is actually a very important issue. You'll have, I'm sure, heard of the broken window theory, that if people see that a place is neglected, they tend to fear, they tend to be on their guard, and also they'll tend to behave in a rather less community beneficial way. They will drop litter. So if streets can be kept clear of litter and detritus and buildings can be kept maintained, then it helps people behave in a sensible way that actually reinforces the quality in the environment. So that's probably enough of that. Going back to people-friendly places, in 1991, Devon County Council published this guidance, the Devon County Council Traffic Calming Guidelines, but it covered so much more than what was then defined as traffic calming. It's really about how people use the public realm, how they use streets, neighbourhoods, town centres and so on. And it was produced by this wonderful chap called Tim Farrow, many years ahead of his time. And the sort of things that were advocated in this guideline were picked up in the Department for Transport's Manual for Streets in 2007. So let's just discuss this a little bit. When it comes to people, what freedoms should people have? And all people are not the same. They are different. They've got different interests, different stages of life, different levels of health, different levels of cognition and ability. What reasonable rights, what reasonable freedoms should they have? And this is a question that you can answer yourself. And what are the practical limits of their ability? A 7-year-old child, the research now suggests that young children can't judge oncoming traffic travelling at speeds much above 20 miles an hour. They don't register the oncoming traffic as moving. So what does that mean in terms of making them safe? what about a 12-year-old child? When at the age of 12, well, there's a legal requirement that children should be educated. In most instances, that means going to school, and when you get to the age of 12, it means going to secondary school. Many children of that age will need to go to school on their own, unaccompanied. So, do they have the cognitive ability, the skills, the level of judgment to be able to be safe in the public realm, to be able to be safe crossing main streets, travelling along main streets? So the research indicates that children, not until the age of about 14, can they successfully cross streets where the traffic speed is 25 miles an hour. And of course, we know the norm for traffic speeds in towns is how many miles an hour? Do I hear 30? I didn't hear 30 because nobody said anything. Right, well, we want a bit of change around there, don't we? And you know what happens? It's these sorts of tragic and pathetic instances. And here, a high-speed road has been put right through the centre of an urban area, and it is utterly foreseeable that young children will at some stage want to cross this, and in doing so, their lives will be in jeopardy. So there is a general duty of care. Highway authorities owe a duty to all road users, whether careful or negligent, to use reasonable care in the manner in which they exercise their powers when they create and maintain the highway. And the precedent here is Yetkin versus Newham 2010. And this is referred to in that one-page code. And it's very, very important, this. And if you're a council and doing that sort of thing, in my view, you're going to land yourself liability owing to this general duty of care. Elderly people, it's not generally regarded, the differences they have. They walk more slowly. A street that you can flit across, an able-bodied person can flit across in a matter of seconds, they will take 10 seconds to cross. And during that time, a car, which, practically the end of the hall, will be here and in a position to injure them or potentially kill them. So that's a consideration. Or women. Many women are uneasy about using streets at night time and even in the daytime. And there will be parts of an urban area where they will be uneasy about going at all. And is that really acceptable? It's potentially the biggest mobility handicap we've got. Partially sighted people. They need a gap in the traffic to be able to cross a street. They have particular needs. So what does the law say about them? The Equality Act defines protected characteristics. We've got age, disability, pregnancy and maternity, race, sex. These all are relevant characteristics where people have differences in the way they use a town or a city or a street or a neighbourhood. And the Equality Act, it creates the public sector equality duty. A public authority must, in the exercise of all its functions, have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, harassment, victimization, advance equality of opportunity, and there's a duty to make adjustments under certain circumstances. So what happens is, on the whole, nothing. This public sector equality duty isn't taken seriously. But there is a duty to have due regard, and due regard means a certain thing. And the test case is Ali versus Newham. Again, it's referenced in that code. A due regard means a vigorous and open-minded inquiry before settling upon a course of action. It's not doing an equality impact assessment and ticking a box. It really means a profound consideration of what's going to happen before any decisions are taken. So, and we're talking about the needs of women, the needs of elderly people. Children are not covered by the Equality Act, but they are covered by that common law duty of care. And what's the remedy? It's judicial review. And a council doesn't really want to end up there. In terms of putting people first, it's in the National Planning Policy Framework, the Planning Practice Guidance, and in the Department for Treats, crumbs, I can't even say it. Help me out, thank you very much. Department for Transport's Manual for Streets, pedestrians first, other motor traffic at the bottom. And of course, the public sector equality duty puts all of the people who have those protected characteristics on the very top of that hierarchy. And what does it mean in practice? Well, this is a diagram from the Devon County Council traffic calming guidelines, but also reproduced in Manual for Streets. And it shows small radius curves at side road entrances, which slow down traffic and create a narrow path for pedestrians to cross, as being much more better than standard wide radius, large radius curves that tend to be specified by default. And unfortunately, Manual for Streets is still ignored by about 80% of highway authorities. And in so doing, they are, I think, in breach of the statutory duty under the Equality Act, Public Sector Equality Duty. They're ignoring their common law duty of care under the common law, and the precedent there is Yetkin versus Newham. They're also in breach of professional codes of conduct. The professional codes say that people practicing in highways should be up to date. That's a core way of demonstrating competence. And if you're not up to date, you're not competent, you're in breach of the professional code of conduct. And if you're in breach of the professional code of conduct, you may be operating without the coverage of professional indemnity insurance. There is a further consideration in relation to the highway authorities, the councils. Councillors and officers enjoy statutory immunity from prosecution, provided they operate within the powers of the council, they act in good faith, and they are not negligent. If the council is employing consultants who are in breach of professional codes of conduct, they're not operating to current guidance, best practice, well, that looks like negligence to me. And it looks like the potential there is for a councillor or an officer in a council becoming liable. And that means personally liable. So the objective, well, how about this? Streets for 7-year-olds, neighbourhoods for 9-year-olds, towns for 12-year-olds. And I think if we created towns and cities and streets that were suitable for this group of people, they would be suitable for everybody. So just to wrap up, there's the Healthy Places Code for councils, free on the Urban Design Group website. And this year, there's an open campaign, Making People Friendly Places, and it hopefully climaxes in a conference in September in Birmingham. So you'd be very welcome to come along to that. But in the interim, the Healthy Places Code for councils, free to download from the Urban Design Group website.